Finding Refuge was made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
The Aleutian Island region of Alaska is amongst the harshest and most beautiful places on Earth. But it has never been easy to survive here. Less than 300 people live in the village of Old Harbor, Alaska, on Kodiak Island. Most of the people who live here year-round depend on fishing. There's no hotel, no supermarket, only one place to get gas, and less than 5 miles of gravel roads. And yet, archaeological evidence shows people have lived on this very site for close to 7,500 years. This is where I was raised.
There you go.
My name is Sven Hawkinson Jr.
Follow him downstream.
I went away to school and eventually became an anthropologist, archaeologist. In 2000, I returned home to direct the Alutiiq Museum in Kodiak, the largest town on the island. I am of Sukhbit, Danish, Norwegian, and Athabascan heritage. But this is not a story about me. It's a story about a woman named Isabella Blanchford. I met her when she volunteered at the museum wanting to learn Alutiiq, our traditional language.
My mother is Supiaq native. My father is a Nupiat Eskimo. I had 2 older siblings, a brother and a sister, and they both had these great big giant beautiful green eyes. And I had these brown eyes and these weird cheekbones and distinguishing features different than my family members. And I always felt a little out of place. When I grew up, I always heard that indigenous people, especially Alaskan natives, were stupid. And we were called the ugly people. I saw my grandmother didn't get the same opportunities as other people. I saw that in my mom as well. I saw that they got treated differently. I did not want to be native. I knew that. I tried to be removed from that stigma of being native as much as possible.
It was in her early in the mid-30s. She was starting to wonder why a lot of her relatives died early, had these horrific lives, why they told her to tell people she was white when she was young. And she just started having this struggle and yearning to find out why and what happened.
Isabella often talked about her shame at being native, and this is a feeling I know all too well. Everything that was native, everything that was foreign was stupid and wrong. And after 8 years at Harvard, I was like, wait a minute, I can't be that stupid. It took me 8 years to figure out, wait a minute, I need to stop this and not tolerate it anymore. And, make a joke of it.
Oh, hey, Dr. Conway.
I later heard Isabella was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer.
Thanks. How bad is that for just 2 weeks?
That's quite a drop.
I'm getting a little nervous.
Well, it is a problem. It makes me concerned about the liver. That's going to be our area of focus, and I think that's why you're kind of
tired,
a little bit nauseous and not having an appetite. You're just going to have to do the best we can.
Knowing her time was limited, Isabella made a bucket list. At the top of that list was the desire to put her shame at being native behind her. After her experience volunteering at my museum, Isabella asked what more she could do.
Shame is such a big word in any Alaskan Native culture. You're born with it, and it's something that I still have a hard time understanding. How you can have this innate feeling, and it goes back for generations.
Growing up, we had no idea how rich our history was. We had no idea how long our people had lived here. The Alutiiq people Our history goes back 7,500 years, and that's based on carbon-14 dating.
Well, that's pretty ingenious.
Alutiiq people from 7,500 years up until 200 years ago survived off of what was right in front of us. In the last 200 years, we've nearly had all that knowledge erased. Eventually, Isabella and I began talking about a place called Refuge Rock, or as we call it, a wauq.
Refuge Rock was told to me in pieces as a young girl. My grandmother used to talk about it. She used to tell me there was a hiding place where the natives used to go and hide from the Russian invaders. And she told it in such an agonizing way, it just stuck in my mind and my heart.
The site we originally called Refuge Rock, we discovered in 1991 and excavated in 1992. When we were doing the excavations, we found what we thought was a side room for storing berries and storing food. And I was doing that one, then I moved over to work with Rick, and we were excavating, and all of a sudden I don't know why, I was like, Rick, I can't dig here. 5 minutes later, he started digging up the remains of what we discovered to be as a young female that had had the back of her head bashed in. And the other one's the leg bones of a child.
As I started to learn about Refuge Rock, it became so important to me because it answered my childhood why. Why are we treated different? Where did we go? What happened to us?
Refuge Rock is where Russians took control of the people's destiny on Kodiak. We became servants to the occupiers. We became a conquered people. Isabella decided she wanted to visit Refuge Rock before she died.
I need courage now just to keep mentally strong in a battle with a stage 4 cancer. And I have to rely on people from my past to get through it.
I had to dig really deep in all this and find my purpose for living because I really didn't know it before cancer. Didn't really understand what my purpose was. And I had to really write down a bucket list of dreams that I always wanted to fulfill. And right now, I'm living in my bucket list dream. I have the opportunity to go to Refuge Rock tomorrow. And so that is a completion of a dream for about 10 years. And so here I am doing my biggest dream. So I leave tomorrow. I can't believe it. Still pinching myself.
Getting to Refuge Rock would not be easy. Isabella was growing weaker and increasingly ill. She would first fly from Portland, where she lived, to Anchorage, and then from Anchorage to the town of Kodiak on Kodiak Island. From there, she would take a small plane to Old Harbor on the east side of the island.
You slide all the way to the right side.
Okay.
Out there, and it hits that for you.
From Old Harbor, she would travel by a small boat to get to a place where she would then have to hike out to Refuge Rock, across a rocky spit that was only exposed at low tide. When Isabella arrived in Old Harbor, she met Alex Shugak. Alex is a subsistence hunter, fisherman, and guide. After hearing Isabella's story, Alex agreed to take Isabella, her husband, and a film crew to Refuge Rock on his personal fishing boat.
When I got to talking to her, she said this is the one thing she wanted to do before her cancer gets to her. And then she told me about why she was wanting to do it, and then she really got to me about our people. And so for me, I just wanted to get her out there because I thought by looking at her that this was the last time she would be coming out.
When I get to touch Refuge Rock and I finally get to finish and complete this dream of mine, it's going to put to bed a lot of different things for me. I want to bury the shame of the past there. That's where the shame began, and I want to bury it there. Thank you, Alex. I'm thinking I'm going to break my bone. I got one bone left that's working. Thank you. So we don't think bears are going to be a problem, huh?
I don't think so.
Usually it's the woman with everything in the pockets and the purse.
No, we have reverse roles in our marriage right now.
My husband's very good to me. This is where they came through. Yeah, this is where they landed, right on this side. Right now we're in McDonald's Lagoon, and just right straight ahead of me is Refuge Rock. The Russians came in with skin boats through here, and they had 3 cannons with them. It was a very strategic move because they were super quiet. They went through the tall grasses and hit the sand, and as we see when we'll get over there, there'll be a spit that appears, and that's where they crossed and attacked the Supiat people. So we're almost there.
In 1784, August 14th, when the Russians came to Refuge Rock, they came up at a high tide, and they knew that at low tide that isthmus would appear. And when the tide went out, they were able to cross that, and they were repelled by bows and arrows, but then when they brought in the cannons, nobody had ever seen that kind of weaponry. When they shot them, it's like thunder. There was so much panic that some of the women threw their own children and themselves off that cliff. People were trampled to death trying to get away. Over 500 natives, Aleut people, women and children and men, were killed in that one day, just on that battle. Here in the village with 300 people, when one person dies, the entire village feels it. Can you imagine in half your village dying off? Or out of 150 people, only 10 surviving? What are you going to carry and what are you going to pass on? The Aleutic name, Refuge Rock area, is called Awawak. And Awawak means when you stick your hands in the water too long and pull them out and they're numb, so you can't feel them anymore. It made perfect sense. If that's where so many people die and that's where basically the Russians claimed Alaska, you know, that's where we lost our own destiny. It would make sense to be a place where you would consider calling it that, to become numb. And I think that in many ways, our people are still numb.
It answered a lot of questions for me. You know, why there were so few Supiaq people left, why there was a sense of shame in the people. So Refuge Rock became personal to me because it's a direct reflection of my grandmother and my mother. When the Russians finally left, there was pretty much cultural genocide in the people. And I'm a direct descendant of that cultural genocide.
I think it's survivor's guilt. We survived, they didn't. We're down to 10% of our population. I think we've been passing on a lot of the anger, the humiliation that we've been taught, whether it's the Russian period or the American period. We can't continue to carry on that survivor's guilt. We can't continue to carry on those self-fulfilling prophecies. And the only way we can change those is by acknowledging it. The site is important to not forget, to remember it, but then to use it as a stepping stone to move forward. Knowing what happened at Refuge Rock also meant knowing what life was like for Native people before that. Our people spoke a very complex language. They could go out and find all the materials right off the beach to survive, to build their houses, boats, kayaks, get food right here. We didn't have to go out to the outside world. We didn't have to depend on the outside world as we become dependent now. And we were thriving.
I think it's important for all Native people, for especially the Supiaq people, to know that they were warriors, that they were brave, and they were tenacious people.
Every person needs to make that journey themselves. To find out, well, the rediscovery of who we are and what we once had here and what it means.
Looking back, I was in, denial of her state. She had a cough because she had a little fluid building in her lungs. She had muscle fatigue. She also had back pain at that point. But she had this inner ability to somehow just push through pain.
Wow, look at this day. Right now we're just standing on the beach and we can see the spit starting to emerge. I feel kind of like a little kid. All the pent-up excitement for all these years. Alec, can I grab onto you? I'm just so weak. Thank you. Oh my gosh. That's harder than I thought. It looks easier.
We're out there, I think, for 6 hours. And anyone who's in stage 4 cancer, most people are happy waking up, walking around the house, strolling with the dog, pacing themselves for half an hour. And here's Bella walking through the marshland, scaling a rock, and draining herself mentally and emotionally. But at the same time, rejuvenating herself mentally and emotionally too with the trip. We really couldn't tell how we were going to get up to the top, to the plateau of the rock. But once we got up next to the rock, we see a really small little trail. She had this purpose, and this purpose was Refuge Rock.
Be careful!
And she uses the word shame a lot. She also uses the word strength and courage.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, this is it.
Once we got on top of Refuge Rock, and we looked back towards the shore, and it's in that bay where the Russians anchored their frigate. And at that point, Bella just really absorbed, and I think she felt what it would have been like had she been there a couple hundred years earlier, and imagining what they saw when their captors and enemies were coming.
These little square.
This is probably where we're at.
Right. One right here. One right here.
How clever were they? See, when you look at the tools, these people knew what they were doing, how to hide.
How to survive.
How to survive. And I guess in each little dwelling, they had survival gear, you know, enough for about 3 to 4 days. This is amazing to me.
Each place allows us to see a little bit more about who we are as humans. To me, that's powerful. And that's that journey of change that I think that she was on.
Now see, this is where the culture started to die. And then this is where it should begin again, if people know about it. You know, when I was walking up here, I was feeling very sad, but at the same time I was looking at you ahead of me, and I was thinking that you're the hope for the future, though.
She really felt if you can find the origin of the shame, then they can actually start becoming, you know, people of pride without any form of shame whatsoever.
I still hear my grandmother. I can still feel the culture and the heritage in me, and that all these centuries, nobody can take that away from us. And I feel strong, and I feel like just that shame that I felt, I don't think I'm going to feel that anymore. I think they tried to take it away from us right here, and that it's time to get it back. But we have to know this exists for that to happen. So
my hope and belief is that the younger generation will have courage to carry the story out themselves and to have a reason to feel proud about their culture and their heritage as well.
Isabella passed just 3 months after visiting Refuge Rock. All of us are on our own personal journey. It's a personal journey about rediscovery, but also looking at who we are and trying to change that. Isabella tried to change that with her dying breath, literally.
And I told her, I think we'll continue living because we've done it for 7,000 years. We saw people come and go, and we're still here. So I told her we'll survive no matter what happens. And she thought the same thing.
We're trying to figure out how to put our knowledge back into a living context. We want to live it. We want to celebrate it. We want to have this knowledge so that we can continue having it passed on within our children and with any child that comes or any human that comes into our area by keeping that knowledge alive.
Finding Refuge was made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. For more information about Finding Refuge and other Vision Maker Media programs, visit visionmakermedia.org.